Well, hello, friends. Thank you so much for joining me for this special bonus episode of Reading Michael Jackson. I am your host, Lena, and I am so glad you decided to join me today for this special episode. Now, I think as most all of you know, if you are listening to this podcast, it likely means you are a big Michael Jackson fan. But today, June 25th, marks the 16th anniversary of Michael Jackson's death. And in the fan community, I think this is a very difficult day, difficult month. I've mentioned this in my previous episodes leading up to this. It's a time of kind of mourning and sadness and reflection for a lot of people. Now, of course, we want to honor and commemorate Michael Jackson, uplift him and his memory, but for a lot of fans, it is very sad and somber to recall and think about Michael Jackson's death. And even as a newer fan within the last few years, I was really struck and surprised by how much the anniversary of Michael Jackson's death affected me. In my first year of fandom, I was only a fan for about 6 or 7 months by the time the anniversary came up. And I was really, really upset. And that seems to be a really common response in the fan community. Now, I want to say a couple of things about that. If you're anything like me, even if the people in your life are very supportive of your love for Michael Jackson, unless they also feel that way, it can be difficult for people to understand how you feel, especially if you are also a person who never met Michael in real life and who is a fan. It can feel parasocial and strange, I think, to a lot of people that many Michael Jackson fans are so sad on June 25th and feel so dark leading up to this time. And so all I can say is I think that as much as it's difficult for other people to understand, we understand, right? We know why we feel so sad about Michael's passing, why recalling the time leading up to his death and the circumstances of his death is so painful to us. And it doesn't really matter if other people don't get it, right? It is very real to us and it is very painful to us because, as I've said many times on this show, and I'm sure so many of you can agree, when you love Michael Jackson, when you're a fan of Michael Jackson in a serious way, it's really not about the music. The music is the avenue through which we discovered this person who is so incredible, so influential, so aspirational. This person who I think for a lot of people gives us a sense of faith in the goodness of the world, in motivation to be our very best as human beings, not just our personal best, but our best in terms of what we bring and offer to the world. I mean, when I think about my own fandom of Michael Jackson, it is laced with the most profound admiration and joy that I've experienced in a lot of ways in my life. I mean, as a human being, he is the most incredible person I've ever encountered, in my life. And so as a point of inspiration for me and the deep love that I feel for him, the music is a big part of my feelings about him. Of course, I love the music and his voice and his beauty as a person, but the love and the profound sadness I feel when I encounter the anniversary of his death every year is not about the music. It's not about the music. It's about the whole of the man and the person that he was. And I know so many fans feel the same way. So regardless of if the other people in our lives get it, we get it. We get it. So that's why I'm happy that you're here today to join me for this special episode. Now, I don't plan to ramble the entire time about just how much I love Michael Jackson, although I could and I would love to. Maybe I'll do that on his birthday. I don't know. Who wants to listen to that? I have no idea. but either way, I wanted to think about what could I do to commemorate Michael's passing? What could I do to really feel like I'm honoring him? And then I think about the things I have done in my life to feel more connected to him, to understand him better. And one of the things that I had the opportunity to do in October of 2024 was visit Neverland. Now, before you get too excited, I was not inside Neverland. I only visited the gates, but I say only with a grain of salt. It is a big deal. I am not from the Western United States. I live on the East Coast, and I had to fly across the country. I did not do this just for going to Neverland. I actually had the privilege of attending Kingvention, the fan convention for Michael Jackson, in its first U.S. iteration in Los Angeles. I also have a friend who lives in Los Angeles who I was able to visit. So everything kind of came together well for me. But as a part of my trip, I rented a car and I drove up to the Santa Ynez Valley, and I stopped and visited Neverland. I stayed the night at a local motel and visited a couple of times. And I had a really profound experience, and I want to share that experience in a piece of writing that I had completed shortly after. One of the reasons I want to share this is because when we come across this anniversary of Michael's death, I think the thing that is the most painful is the feeling that this miraculous human being is gone, and the injustice of how he has gone and why he has gone, and the horrifying events of his life that led to his death. It's very painful. Had he lived a long, healthy, happy life, maybe we would be able to kind of smile more when we think about him on this day. But I think it's difficult otherwise. So in so many ways, his death feels like, a betrayal of the greater universe. He was taken, and that's a horrible feeling. And so his absence in the world, despite his presence in pop culture, his absence in the world, his physical absence in the world, is horrible and painful and a massive loss. So in this piece that I want to read, I decided I wanted to share this because when I went to Neverland, I had a very profound emotional and spiritual experience there, where I very strongly felt a kind of presence of Michael. And I felt like I was not alone in the world, if that makes sense. And so I wrote this originally to share my experience with the Michael Jackson Book Club on Facebook, but I thought I would take this special episode, this anniversary, as an opportunity to share it with the wider listener audience of this podcast. So if that interests you, please stick around. I would love to have you join me in sharing this story. But that is my plan for today's episode. So to give you a little bit of context before I begin reading, during this trip to Los Angeles, I visited a number of Michael Jackson-oriented places. I visited the Grammy Museum. I visited murals, a couple of different murals actually, of Michael, including a beautiful mural of his eyes taking up an entire wall in Los Angeles. It is incredible. Probably my favorite mural of his I've actually seen. It's gorgeous. I also stopped by the Havenhurst property, although I was not able to see Havenhurst, the house itself. I was able to see the gates, and that was a really cool thing to me. I also visited Forest Lawn, where Michael Jackson was buried, and I'm not focusing on that story today. I am focusing on the trip to Neverland. So just to set you up, this story I'm going to share takes me from Los Angeles when I stopped and visited different places, and then takes me through my drive up to the Santa Ynez Valley and to Neverland. This is going to be a long story, so sit back, relax, get comfortable, get cozy, and please join me for this reading of my personal journey to Neverland. I don't know where to begin this, so I will just tell it like it happened. Whenever I travel, there are many moments of surreal revelation. The reminder of how wide and vast this world is. I felt it in Los Angeles, which I navigated with the sole intention of seeking connection with Michael. Of course, I was there for Kingvention, but I wanted to stop by other MJ spots too. First to the famous mural of his gaze from the cover of Dangerous. Garbage-strewn sidewalks, a chain-link fence, and his eyes, expansive and arresting, burning through it all. Wow, I would drive onto the sidewalk, crash my car, and destroy my insurance rates if I lived here. How does anyone in Los Angeles manage to focus on anything with the distraction of Michael's eyes watching over them? Are they all just more balanced than me? Probably. Next to the Monte Carlo Cafe, which I've spent months Googling as the Beat It Cafe, I tried to play it cool, walking in there, not staring at the big mural of MJ towering over the tiny breakfast spot. Me and my performative aloofness, I guess I'll try how about the Beat It smoothie? Like I'd never heard the song. Like I just happened to stumble into this hole in the wall, quite literally, a cutout door and window on an otherwise naked wall settled between two downtown LA streets. All coolness left my body when, to my surprise, I was handed a smoothie and a free poster. I emitted something between a yelp and a squeal, and then I lost all sense of decorum and snapped photos like paparazzi. Kingvention, new friends, old friends, more murals, Grammy Museum, a drive-by of Havenhurst. This isn't what you're listening for, but if you want more details, feel free to ask. Let's talk about Neverland. With fallen leaves from a Havenhurst tree freshly pressed in my journal, okay, so I got out and stole some leaves from the sidewalk. I finally left LA, but the chaos of the city was still reverberating through me. Los Angeles is not beautiful, but it is certainly alive. Though I found myself more comfortable navigating the traffic than I expected, I also spent 3 days waiting for the escape. Not so much from the city, but to somewhere else, an alternative way of being and existing, an ocean, a mountain, a breath released. This is relevant, I think. It is difficult to explain, but I'm going to try to. After coming through LA in the sprawling claustrophobic energy, driving 101 north had already eased the tension. But even driving along the California coast, immersed in the beauty of the ocean air and the waves, and driving freely towards somewhere else, I was still surrounded by people and reminders of them. Passing through Santa Barbara and then shifting inland, away from the ocean, ascending into the Los Padres forest, heading into the Santa Ynez Valley, the speed limit dropped, the crowd of cars around me fell away, and the highway funneled from 5 lanes to 3 to 1. As I wound up mountain roads, higher and higher, crawling toward the top, I sensed this was the beginning of something, but I had no idea what. So I thought about Michael. Were there certain sections of this drive he loved? Certain views he always pulled over to take in? What did he feel? Was it a relief of escape or a joy at arriving? Possibly both. Call me crazy, but I spoke to him out loud as I drove. I get why you loved this place, I said. I can see your vision and it's so clear. I love it too. This transition in so many ways represented his life, one of extremes. The claustrophobia of the city and the expansiveness of the mountain. The chaos of fame and the respite of intentional solitude. I imagined him in the back of a car, breath releasing, muscles relaxed like the deepest sigh. I pictured him looking out the window and a sense of calm moving through him as he saw the landscape transition and the roads narrow. A return to home after the strangeness of everywhere else. The drive was unbelievably beautiful. The mountains were not just dry, rocky desert peaks like I had somewhat expected. There were layers of enormous sandy mountains peppered with green trees and golden brush. It was getting late, and the setting sun spread across the surface, casting a magical orange glow over everything. Over every hill and dip, a new view, and a gasp as I reveled in it all. The mountains alone were beautiful enough for my eyes to fill with tears, but then at some point, high in the mountains, a beautiful, glimmering lake revealed itself. Then another and another. This was the moment of transition for me, the moment when I stopped thinking about Michael and I started to feel him. It's when this place stopped reminding me of him, but became him instead. As if this place could get any more beautiful, the shimmering surface of lake water, the deep blue of it shimmering beneath the setting sun, how could anything be so beautiful? How could anything continue to be more and more and more than anything it ever needed to be? More than we could possibly expect or ask for. How could the world be filled with so much beauty so many of us will never see, never even have the chance to reach, smell, taste, or touch? It was Michael. The land was Michael, the mountain, the air, the orange glow, the shimmering waters. I saw him in everything. I felt a resonance of his soul, his spirit so free and swirling, rustling the leaves, reflecting in the rippling lake surface. His essence was everywhere, still 20 minutes away from Los Olivos, 30 minutes away from Neverland. And this feeling took over my being, and it did not let go. I couldn't help but cry. The sight alone was beautiful enough, but the reverberation of Michael was all-consuming. How could I feel him here so profoundly? The purity of him was almost palpable, like every scent in the world was at once replaced by your favorite perfume, and all you could do was breathe. Inhale, consume, and let it wash over you. Descending into Los Olivos, I wasn't prepared for how it would feel arriving at Figueroa Mountain Road. The sun was already set, and the light was quickly fading from the sky. But my feelings were so intense, I could not imagine waiting until the following morning. As I began down the road, my heart was racing. A vibration had begun to course through me the moment I saw that lake, but it was buzzing now. A physical sensation of anxiety, awe, and something else. Then I saw it, coming up on the left-hand side, just like I had expected. Neverland, Michael. I parked across the street and stepped outside. Complete silence, save for birds and crickets. Soft wind rustling. The sight of it was surreal. It all immediately hit me. This place is real, which means Michael was real, which means everything that brought me here is real. Every feeling, every moment of awe, every beating breath of love for this man, for what he gave, for the miracle of him. It was all suddenly real, because I was there in his presence. I walked to the gate slowly, slower than I've probably ever walked in my life. I wanted to take it in. I wanted to allow myself to discover what was there. Resist cataloging or documenting, resist judging or anticipating. Let it wash over me. This was entirely worth it. That was my first coherent thought as I looked at the flowers, the sky, the mountains, the trees, the familiar gate. The hours of traffic, the drive, the money, the effort, the time off work, everything, all of it, it was worth it. Just to be there, outside of the gate, surrounded by signs of love. The rocks covered with names and fan signatures, countries and messages, all allowed. No signs saying private property or leave us alone, you crazy Michael Jackson fans. Nothing of the sort. Just beauty. The closer I got, the more I started to tremble. Even the motion lights coming to life made me flicker with emotion. The intense vibration inside of me, the buzzing, got more extreme. I couldn't quite believe the feeling. Listen, I know all of this sounds very dramatic. In fact, it is very dramatic. So I'm sorry if this intensity is not something you get. Not everyone feels things the way I do, of course, but I cannot minimize it. I don't want to edit myself here. I just want to tell you how it was. After about 15 minutes of walking around the driveway, staring at the gate, reading the fan messages, tears falling down, I still couldn't identify what I was feeling, but I knew that it was pain. Extreme pain. A kind of strange, suffering grief that I know all Michael fans understand, but that suddenly hit me on a whole new level. This place was beautiful, perfect, but Michael was gone, and so were his dreams. It was unbearable, and it was consuming every inch of my body. Then, as if on cue, a pickup truck rumbled down the road toward me. This was the first vehicle I had seen since turning on the road about 20 minutes earlier. It hadn't hit me how alone I had been out there until then. 2 men up front and a dog standing in the back of the truck. They drove by me and yelled from the vehicle mockingly, "Michael's not home." As they passed by, I imagined them laughing to each other, or perhaps just rolling their eyes, venting their frustrations, so sick of all these Michael Jackson fans who surely visit frequently. But their words sent a shudder through me. Such cruelty, such envy. I know some people can't handle the thought that they will be forgotten and he never will be. But what an unnecessary and unkind statement. Their words not only hurt, but were also a reminder that I was alone, that no one else was around, that anything could happen. Even Michael wasn't there. After a few minutes, the feeling in my body became unbearable, and I decided that it was time to leave. I didn't want to. It hurt to imagine staying, but it also hurt to leave. I promised Michael, out loud, that I would come back the next day, and I drove away trying not to look back. I couldn't help but cry. And by cry, I mean hysterically sob. I know, I warned you, this is all very dramatic, but how could I not? I was physically and emotionally overwhelmed. I found myself talking to him as I drove, saying all kinds of things, but mostly just feeling completely consumed by love and sadness. I spent the night unable to sleep. I wanted to write, but I couldn't. I talked to friends online, ate in silence, and stared at my ceiling. I was deeply unsettled, but I couldn't place why. That is until I decided to try to sleep. I turned off the lights, laid in bed, and suddenly felt very, very afraid, because what I was feeling finally hit me. I was confused, deeply confused, because even though I know Michael is gone, I felt with complete and total certainty that he was there too. And it was a feeling I could not reconcile. How could he be here and gone at the same time? Where was he really? Where had he been all this time? How could any of this be? I don't know how else to explain it, except to say around 4 a.m., I fell asleep crying, feeling very nervous and unsettled, like everything I knew and thought was true was suddenly turned on its head. Nothing made sense to me. I woke up at 7, and before even opening my eyes, the same vibrating, buzzing feeling flooded through me. I didn't want this feeling. I wanted to feel peace. That's all I'd ever heard anyone say about visiting Neverland, that it is beautiful and peaceful. I had never heard anyone describe it how I was experiencing it. To be honest, I felt like I was doing something wrong. I decided that I would pack up my room, check out, and go to a coffee shop. I'd get some breakfast, and I would try to write through my feelings before going back to Neverland. I was determined for the day to be good, but I was afraid I couldn't recover it. I was extremely happy to be there, but extremely uncomfortable with whatever I was feeling. After an hour or two at the coffee shop, Lefty's had great lattes and granola if you ever go, I decided it was time to return. It was foggy, drizzy, and dismal. This was not what I was expecting in California. Turning back down Figueroa Mountain Road, I tried to brace myself for the worst, for the buzzing inside to become unbearable again, for me to be forced to leave sooner than I wanted. But as soon as I reached the gates of Neverland, everything changed. I parked my car, stepped into the road, and crossed the street to the gate. The moment I stepped onto the driveway, the buzzing vibration inside of me immediately released, vanishing into the atmosphere around me and never returning. For the first time since I had seen the lake on my drive the night before, I felt completely free. It was like magic. I turned around and I saw the sun shining through the clouds and the fog falling away almost in an instant. I was stunned. For the next 2.5 hours, I spent time at Neverland. I read every fan note that I could, walked down the roadside, picking wildflowers and tufts of wheat. I filled a small jar with soil from the property, pressed leaves and flowers in my book, gathered acorns and tiny rocks. I ventured down the road far enough so I could see the ashy marks where the recent wildfire had been stopped, far too close for comfort. Thank you again to the firefighters for saving this place. But most of the time, I spent in a kind of silent meditation. I settled beneath a tree on the front of the property, right in front of the wooden fence. I sat with my journal and simply let the space and the place wash over me. The feeling was all-consuming. It was Michael. I felt him in a way I never have before. In fact, what I felt was something I have never felt before, ever, anywhere. Pure light. Pure goodness. Just a total, all-consuming swell of love and knowing. Knowing him. It's so difficult to explain without sounding insane, but it's just the truth of how it felt. I felt like in the time of being there, I could see and feel his soul, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. And if all my drama wasn't enough for you yet, here is the strangest and craziest part. The feeling of his presence was so intense, and his spirit felt so known to me that I almost felt like I met him. That in this moment, I was literally sitting with him, This presence I felt was the strongest feeling I've probably ever had in any place. It was like sitting at the edge of time or perched on the spectrum between life and death. It was bizarre, but it was beautiful. And yes, I finally felt like I was at complete and total peace. I spent time writing, taking notes, and crafting some poetry. I knew I had to leave. I had to reach Forest Lawn before it closed and return my rental car. So eventually, I stood up from the ground, brushed away all the grass and dirt, and took my final action. I wrote a tiny note for Michael, rolled into a scroll, tucked into the tiniest jar you have ever seen, and I slid it between the rocks on the border of the gate. I wanted to leave him with something from me, just like I wanted to leave with pieces of him. When I tell you that leaving Neverland was hard, I mean it was devastating. Even before pulling away, I started to cry. It felt like I was leaving him, and I didn't know when I'd see him again. As I drove away, the gate and the land disappeared from sight in my rearview mirror. So reading that and sharing that story felt pretty intense for me personally. I got kind of teary-eyed a few times. I got chills several times. It's very easy to place myself back there. And the reason I wanted to share this, well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, I know with an international fan base and with many people listening to this who are not based in the United States, most Michael Jackson fans will never get a chance to even step foot in California, let alone at the gates directly outside of his property. So I wanted to share it for that reason. But I also wanted to share it because after that experience, for the next several months, I felt really different. I felt this constant sense of peace that I could tap into anytime I wanted to. I could close my eyes and picture myself back there, and I would feel this physical sensation in my body that brought me to total peace. It was really like nothing else I've ever experienced. And I actually really believe that this experience is what led me to starting this podcast, because I had brought Dancing the Dream with me. And when I went to Neverland the first night, I picked leaves off of one of the trees. And when I got back to my hotel, I tucked them into my Dancing the Dream book. And I flipped through the pages, and it was accompanying me there. And because I felt such a strong spiritual connection to Michael, I really felt like, okay, this is the time for me to start exploring how I can commemorate and honor him and his legacy. And the profound feeling of his presence that I described in this story is one that does bring me comfort when we pass an anniversary like today, June 25th, when we have to and are forced to reflect on the fact that he is gone. It's easy to say, let's just smile and remember what it was like when he was here, and let's just enjoy his art and all that. But it doesn't change the fact that we want him here, and that we miss him, and that we wish he was still alive. And so I wanted to share a story that was about feeling him and feeling his presence even while we know he is gone. So I really hope that if you did listen to this full story, I know it was long, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that it felt for you like a way to connect with Michael in some way today, of all days, when it is so difficult to be without him in this world. His presence is radiant, his life was incredible, and his impact is permanent. He's made a permanent impact on humanity. And I am so grateful that I am someone who, despite spending a lifetime not knowing Michael, I discovered him in my own way and in my own time. I've said this to people before. I really believe that in order to love and connect with Michael the way that I have and so many other fans have, I really believe you have to be at a point in your life when your heart is completely open. I think this is why so many children love Michael and fall in love with Michael and his music and his image and him, and find comfort in him. I think for me, if I had tried to, get into Michael Jackson 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I don't know if I would have. Not because his art wasn't just as incredible then, but because my heart wasn't open enough. I had to experience my own journey of healing and growth for me personally to be able to open my heart enough to let in this beautiful person whose legacy and artistry and humanity are forever life-changing for me. So again, I started by saying, I know not everyone gets it, right? Not everyone gets it. And, some of the people who listen to this podcast because they know me and they like and want to support me, you may not get it. And it's okay with me if you think I'm a little crazy. But I feel what I feel and I experienced what I did. And I am grateful to be able to have a platform now to share this with all of you. Thank you again for tuning in. Whatever you do today, I hope you find a way to feel connected to Michael as a human, not just as an artist, but as a human. Because when he died, his art did not die. That lives on forever. But we should still take the time to honor the human man behind everything he created and gave to the world. So thank you. I wish you a beautiful day and week. And I will talk to you all next Tuesday for our next regular episode of Reading Michael Jackson. Until then, take care.